Hey, and welcome to TSOB. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are interested in investing or starting their own funds. We are Adam Anderson and Zach Eikenberry. Join us to get a behind-the-scenes look at the relationships between founding entrepreneurs and the VCs that invest in them. So, TSOB, is Fortnite overrated? Hey, what's up? I'm Adam. That's Zach. Joining us is Parker. We are in Cocoa Beach, Florida. We're in Clearwater, Florida. And we're here doing a post-funding retreat to figure out what the hell our product is, because it's taking us to where it is now, and now what's next. Why don't we introduce ourselves real quick? I'm a Virgo. Who the hell are you?
I think a Sagittarius.
That's not your name. You're Zach.
I'm just trying to improv. I'm catching what you threw.
I don't know. It's been a long day. We've been like deep thinking and sitting on rooftop bars. And actually what we're going to be talking today about is the actual roof. But hey, Parker, who are you? What the hell do you do?
I don't know my sign. Maybe a December.
Is it yield? Is it stop?
Yeah, there you go. My sign is stop, live, laugh, love, actually. That's my sign.
Just check your watch.
My dead.
We just got started, man.
My battery dead.
We are like less than 2 minutes in it, and you're looking at your fucking watch.
Surely I've got
He's still trying to figure out who the Cocoa Beach joke was for.
Look, we show up with enthusiasm. We just don't try hard. It's all good. So Parker is like in charge of growth and product and a whole bunch of stuff. And since he's so like such an important part of figuring out what the hell we're doing, I thought it'd be kind of neat to be like, hey, it's been a couple of years. We've raised $5 million. We've worked hard. I thought it'd be cool to talk to somebody who actually, I don't know, did work around at Hook security that was measurable and valued.
So this part,
careful.
I'm going to be polite.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm choosing kindness right now, and I'm going to be unclear.
That's the best. Yeah. What's today been like for you, sitting down here after thinking about something for so long and then spending almost 5-6 hours just going through all the things?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I feel like probably in any early stage company, but for us, it was very easy to just try to be everything to everyone, because that felt like where the most money was. Because if our TAM is all companies, then God, look how much money we could go make.
We only need to close 10% of that.
Right. And so
1%.
Yeah, not even. So what it kind of would happen is, then it's like, okay, we've got 6 or 7 different target buyers that we're kind of trying to align to. We have to make everyone happy. Every customer is the right customer for us. So I think what's been helpful this year is to get smaller to get bigger, is what we've been saying. So the more we can drill down into not only who seems to like us the most, but who we like working with the best, what our team and our product serves best. There's enough of those people out there to get where we want to go. And so that's been great on our sales and revenue side of just getting better at who our ideal customer really is. And now using that data to figure out how we make a better product, and keep winning over that audience that we really like to work with.
Yeah, so I'm curious, Parker. We've talked before, and we've even mentioned it on this podcast, that one of the things about cybersecurity SaaS that we thought was different than B2B SaaS is B2B SaaS, you lead with your disruption, right? Like if you can disrupt something in an intuitive way that the buyer gets immediately and solves a real problem for them, like you have a straight line to revenue with B2B SaaS in general. But in cybersecurity SaaS, we said, you actually have to hold back your disruption. You have to earn the right to disrupt. And so that led us down a path of first showing up to compete, then we want to lead, then we want to disrupt, and we want to actually earn that right over time. Because the cybersecurity buyer, our hypothesis with, we could be wrong, that they value proven over innovative up until a point. And once you've proven yourself, then you have permission to truly innovate and do some good stuff. And so I don't know what you think about that when it comes to our product roadmap, because that it's a little unorthodox and it creates different challenges for the growth side.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around since like the 80s, but like the technology adoption curve where you've got your people who will try anything, right? Those innovators, like I want whatever's new. Early adopters, late adopters, the late majority, the laggards. I think it's a different looking curve in cybersecurity versus like, I don't know, like MarTech, something like that, because there's more when you're acquiring a tool for marketing or sales, you're looking at the other side of it going, oh, let's try this out. What's going to hurt? All we got to do is make a few sales with this tool. The risk of something like that, it's easier to take a chance on something new. Cybersecurity, you have distinct processes you have to keep in place. You have to make sure that your infrastructure, your company's not going to be more at risk. So I think there's just inherently more risk in cybersecurity with your tool set. So the idea of that early adoption, switching things up, trying anything is less there. And then I think budget constraints are there too.
You just said the magic word. Budget constraints, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers! Ding 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 ding.
Is that your bingo card?
That's it, man. Yeah,
number one answer on the board.
Hey, every time you hear budget constraints, we're gonna cheers. It's not a drinking game because it's not fun. It's just what we're doing. But yeah, so like when you were talking, it's like, okay, well, this is kind of like the healthcare industry where the price of being wrong on a product decision can result in harm that is disproportionate to the value that the thing could possibly be giving. So They're not going to start with, hey, I got this brand new heart. It'd be bad. It'd be completely awesome. Let's stick it in this person's chest. Right. There's going to be so many things to do before you're allowed to do the new thing. And that's exactly what we experienced with cyber, because just like in medical, the first is do no harm, right? We actually don't install patches a lot because we call them break fixes, not fix specs. So it's like any change into the environment introduces risk. And if you really don't trust what that change is going to do, it's really hard to do adoption, especially if you have budget constraints. Am I the only one playing this damn game?
No, I do think what's interesting that we might also be seeing in this industry.
Budget constraints.
So budget constraints are downhill of company values, right? A company puts capital towards the things that it values. Like that's just what the budget reflects.
Fair.
And what I think we're seeing is this age-old dichotomy between like, are you a pain medicine or a vitamin, painkiller or vitamin? And the idea that cybersecurity is both, and it's increasinly being purchased as if it's a painkiller and not just preventative. That it's like this is an inevitable issue you will face. It's like trying to say that an oil change is a vitamin. If you don't change your oil, eventually your car will lock up. Like it's going to happen. And so I think that's one of the interesting spaces that we're in as well, a dynamic that's shifting in cybersecurity abroad. And I'm seeing more budget allocated to cyber. And it tends to be, post-incident, post-breach, unfortunately for major enterprises and brands. But I think enough executives are looking at other companies who experience incidents and issues saying, all right, how do we stay out of the headlines? How do we make sure that's not us?
So when you're developing the next generation of a product, how much of it is, I know this is what they need, I know this is the right answer, and then how much of it is, but this is what the market will pay for? And so how do you balance when you are designing a new product and you align it with the growth strategies and the growth data? What is that process like in your head?
I mean, it comes down to really like what is the user of the app trying to accomplish? Like we talked about a lot today, the jobs to be done of that, of the tool or of the product, because what you see so many times is CISO says, hey, we need a new product here, go do a bunch of research. Great. Hey guys, what do you think should be in our new version of this product? I'm in charge of vendor stuff. So now I've got a huge list. I've got a big questionnaire for all the vendors. Now I've got it filled out. Everyone checked every box. I don't know how to buy this thing. I don't know which one's good to buy. I can't make a great recommendation to my boss. Boss, I think we should keep the thing we have. It's not great, but I'm not willing to risk,
Yeah.
my stance in this company to get that. So I think, the more we can make it just easy to buy, and easy for buying process that takes more than one person, often 6, 7, or 8 people. Can that process get done? So a lot of products just aren't very easy to buy, even though it might seem that way. It's just hard for the person who understands the value of it to convey that value to the person that's going to write the checks.
Yeah.
And training, unlike any other tool, I mean, there's a lot of cybersecurity tools where you can get real-time data. We stopped this many emails from getting into that inbox today. Hey boss, look what we did today. Training, we have to do a better job of helping them measure and report up to their bosses and the C-suite owners of the company. Like, here was the effect of doing this training, not just here's all the threats that we saw in real time and stopped, and you can see the ROI of those tools, but here's how we further became more resilient because of what we did with our people.
That's cool. It makes me think about the strategic selling book. Have you guys ever read Strategic Selling? It's back in the 80s. It outlines what you just described, that there are 4 different buyers in any large enterprise complex deal. So a simple deal is you own a sporting goods store. Zach is selling basketballs. You come in and say, we'd like to buy basketballs. You're like, totally want to buy basketballs. You're the decision maker, you're the budget holder, right? In a strategic or a complex sell, you have multiple different stakeholders that own different parts of it. And so typically what we find is when we're selling cybersecurity, we can have a whole lot of buy-in from the technical user whose pain point we're solving, but they have no budget authority. So they're not the economic buyer, right? And then, so I think it's user, tech, and economic are the 3 stakeholders. And the user is the one who's going to use the product. The tech is the person who's telling you whether or not the product is actually going to do the things that it says it's going to do. And then the economic buyer is the one who writes the check. The 4th is the coach. The coach is not someone who has a voice in it, but I've never done a strategic sale without a coach telling me how the enterprise does what it does. And so I wonder, who do you make the product for when you're looking at the strategic selling model? And what I heard you say is you got to make it easy to buy, which means you got to make sure the economic buyer has an easy yes, the technical buyer has an easy yes, the user has an easy yes, and you inspire somebody to introduce the product to the enterprise on your behalf as an easy yes.
Yeah, I think one of the things that more and more complicated enterprises actually introduce is just getting by vetoes and blockers, not getting to yeses. So what most, like especially software SaaS, is able to accomplish when the sales are not in the room, like when you're selling out in the room, is you're able to, the technical buyer says, well, does it do this, this, and this? Yes. All right, I don't care. Right. And you're able to go around folks because it's solving only the user's needs. Right. And the economic people are like, well, do we have the budget for it? Did we already allocate it? Okay, cool. Like you're making, like they don't provide their veto. They don't actually have to provide a yes. And I think what you're seeing more and more in enterprise sales is, it used to be you try to get everybody to be on board. And really the real good salespeople anymore are just trying to make sure that the vetoes don't get played.
Well, especially if you're going head to head, right? And so what will typically happen is when you're selling against other people, You might have the economic buyer be a huge fan of solution A because the numbers make sense. And then technical buyer is a fan of solution B, and the user is desperate for solution C. And so the easy to buy, I think, means that you have to be able to get to remove the no's, is how I'm going to be saying what you just said. So not getting them to a yes, but remove the no's and beat the apathy of not making a decision. Right, because I think that's one of the things you touched on. It's such a complex thing, buying security stuff, that sometimes you're like, well, we'll just be good enough unless there's a compliance reason or a critical thing to make a decision. People will choose to do nothing over choosing to do even go with a competitor, right? So yeah, no, this is why sales is like a real job. And I think it's interesting that we're sitting here thinking about product. And a lot of what we're thinking about over the last 6 hours has been, how do you bring it to market? Can you bring it to market? And therefore, does that make it part of the strategy and the product that we're actually creating? Where I would think that most nerds would just try to build the thing that got the job done. And, you know, we lower our standards.
Yeah, I don't.
It's budget constraints.
I don't think a bunch of constraints.
Well, I'm the only one playing when you guys are no fun.
I don't know if I can keep up.
It's a Corona Light, bro. It's a Zach Eikenberry. It's a Corona Light.
It's imported. It could be a little bit
It's
more.
like 1 calorie per budget constraints.
Thanks for playing, Parker. Yeah. We have to do this because we're talking about stuff, and I'm fairly certain no one's listening at this point. So we have to do this for our own entertainment. Yeah. Hey, by the way, if you do listen to this, it'll be great. Just send Zach a LinkedIn. Yes. Apparently, I forgot to update any of my LinkedIn with anything TSOB related, and we've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
So
we have.
Yeah. So reach out to Zach.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's perpetually fascinating to me is how quickly tech can go wrong and not have a market to sell to, and how often salespeople could go wrong and not build or not request the thing that people actually buy. Like let me put it this way, like salespeople go out and they talk to folks and they come back and they say, if we only did this and this feature, I would get all the sales in the world. And if you let that be your product roadmap, I think you fail the sum total of all users. And but at the other hand, if you're in a hole somewhere and you get no feedback whatsoever, and you think if I build it, they will come, you'll also fail right on your face. And so trying to understand what the signals are coming into your market and trying to deeply understand at a level of empathy. So I think what we mostly talk about is like, even with these 3 people are in an enterprise and these are the hats they wear and this is what they're trying to solve. And this, we spent out of the 6 hours a day, 4 hours empathizing with the buyer.
That's right. Asking what jobs are they trying to get done? What are they, what's stopping them from becoming as successful as they want to be, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
They're the hero, right? And we're the sword. That's shorthand. That might not encompass everything because I'm not trying to put us down, but
we're Yoda, they're Luke.
Okay.
Luke's the hero of the story.
We're Obi-Wan, not Yoda.
I thought Luke ended up not doing too hot.
Well, we don't count those movies.
Okay.
Not my Luke Skywalker.
Not my Luke.
Not my Luke Skywalker. I will now that I've said the words. It's not Mark Hamill's Luke either.
So Parker, if you had to give advice as a growth and product person to people out there who are in a startup or taking the risk and doing the startup, we're going from startup to grow up. We've talked about that. Yeah. Like, what would you say to folks? What would you be putting out there?
I mean, I think it really does come down to listening to your customers and the prospects, especially the ones that say no. I think it's easy to hear a specific deal, like they didn't come because this and this. And you're right. It's unwise to just pivot and rush every time you hear like a feature request. but to not start to gather that into trends, and then 6 months in, you're like, whoa, we're consistently losing deals because we're missing X and Y, and that's really important to people. Then you start to come up with some like real value, and yeah, just I think the amount of data that you can get from your customers, not only the features in the product, but like how they describe it. I mean, sometimes we can come over the top with big language about, how we're thinking about this, but if that's not how the buyer sees our product, they might not think we solve their problem at all. So just kind of hearing, my advice would be your best few customers, ask them as many questions as you can. How did you find us? What were you thinking in the process? Why did you say yes to us? Who did you almost say yes to? All those things will start to give you data you just wouldn't have, in a CRM field or anything like that. So the qualitative insights, I feel, have been very beneficial. And the thing I'd say is, like I said, the not trying to be everything to everyone, but also not trying to do what tactics that are working for $50 million companies and trying to do that as a small business, as like, all right, we have to be on every social media channel. We have to do every type of content. We have to be everywhere because that's how this giant company that's doing really well is, they're everywhere. Just doesn't really work. You have to find the one or two areas where you can really just find happy customers repeatably.
How do you manage that process when you're when you don't have your hands on it? So Parker's doing all the stuff, he's got all the data, you're one step removed, or are you? So what is it like CEOing a executive who is in the midst of a thing and controls so much of what the company's doing? And what's that relationship like when you guys have to have communication and all that?
Well, for me, like, I fundamentally trust Parker, right? So whatever he does.
Sucker. Sorry, that was disrespectful. But please continue.
Very Yoda of you.
Yoda. No, I'm not even trying.
He's like,
that was so
literally, Yoda has the one thing he's known for, like, disrespectful are you? And like, you couldn't even do that.
Disrespectful. Seagull. Kneecap. You fundamentally trust Parker.
Yeah, fundamentally. So when we're going through these exercises, like, I find my value in trying to give broader frameworks because Parker gets to figure out the what's that makes sense, right? So a larger framework is, this is let's say, like, this is an onboarding tool and a way to deploy. So I'm thinking of these jobs to be done. And he goes, okay, what is embedded in that job is this, and this. How we can solve that problem is this, and this. When we can start doing this is on this, and this schedule with what resource. Like, so all the things that fall under that are all on Parker. And, after these few days on this retreat, I do intend to be out of his way on this. Like, I run support because whatever decisions he makes, I know he's trying to do it for the best of the company. So what we're doing here is we're refining each other's vision and getting each other's words in our head so that I could get Parker's thoughts in my head. He can get my thoughts in his head. So when we're making decisions, we can say, what would Parker think about this? What would Zach think about this? But whatever calls Parker makes as product roadmap, like, that's what we're going with.
And how do you decide when, first off, does that resonate? Or are you like, this guy's full of shit?
No, yeah. Zach's great at painting a picture of like maybe step 10 of a process. And I think I'm good at going, here's what step 1 would be on that. And then usually that'll inspire you of like, oh, step 2 and 3 would be this. And then we just build off each other to get to the end.
That's cool.
So I think we're good at visualizing what we're looking for. And then I'm able to, like you say, kind of go, well, here's the first couple of things we want to do, to start that. And then it just kind of takes off.
Is that what a deliverable at the end of a product growth retreat looks like? Is here's the first couple of things we're going to do. This is the kind of money we're going to be spending. So how do you know that you have become on the same page and that there's now a path forward for the next? So you say you're getting out of the way. how do we know that you have all of the stuff that you need, Parker, to be successful in that next sprint? What does that look like?
So what we're attempting right now is an outcome at one level is probably just a pitch deck. And what that means is, for me, selfishly, I'm the guy who raises resources. So Parker says, this is what needs to happen. This is what we can do. We can bring this over from our current work. This is where we're headed with the new work. He gives me these frameworks. I kind of play with them a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out how to tell the right story. So we build the story around this, but like I go out and raise those resources. Right. And so he hands that off to me and says, I need $2 million to go do this. And I say, okay, cool. And then in the meantime, I say, all right, what do you need? And he's like, well, I need to be able to do this, 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 and this to while you go out and fundraise. Because we're still in that cycle, as it were. We're not fully capitalized to meet all our ambitions. And so
does that mean there's budgetary constraints?
Yes. Right. So I think what we're working with here with Parker is like, that's what I mean by get out of the way. Like my role in this as a global leader of the company, I have other responsibilities too, and it's not just product. And so product tells me they need X amount of resources, and I say, all right, let's negotiate, let's debate, let's go get it.
Yep.
And then
the way I kind of approach it on marketing, and it'll work similarly in product, is having guardrails of anything like this, because I think we're walking away with like, it would be unwise to say we have figured it out and there's nothing left to be done with our big idea. But that's not true. You know, we think we know. And so in marketing, the way we try to approach any kind of campaign or initiative is like, here's what we really think is going to happen. And here's how we're going to test that hypothesis. Here's how we're going to know it's working. Here's how we're going to know it's not working and when to stop doing it. So kind of having those guardrails of like, yes, do the thing, know how you're going to be to know for sure that it's successful, and know when to stop. And so that's kind of, you know, I think we have a good hypothesis. We need to test it and move forward, and we need to see that we're getting traction, but also see, no, this doesn't have legs. It's time to cut it.
So those guardrails, those are go kind of moments. And how far in advance? Let me ask it in a different way. Are those subjective decisions on how you feel about a thing at a time, or do you attempt to at least have some objective KPIs where you're like, we're not going to spend more than $45,000 on this without hitting ABC whatevers? And
that's right. Yeah, I think we'd have a series of milestones that we'd have to check and test the hypothesis, and at those different times, you know, I mean, this is an iterative process anyway. So there's constant checks of is the idea validated? Is there traction? Are the resources there? Not the budgetary constraints, but the budgetary resources.
He's playing with those guys. That's empty, bro.
Oh, dude. I got like 8 more sips. The way I'm drinking right now. It's the last till after dinner.
I love it because I think there's what's interesting about where we are as a company is like we can come up with $100 to do whatever we want. That's fine. But that doesn't mean we can do that indefinitely. And we're definitely at a point where every $500 we have to ask ourselves what's up. And $1,000 is a lot for us to commit to something. And it has to be strategic, and we have to see that money coming back to us somehow.
That's right.
And so, and that can come from like paying operational debt. And so like there's a lot of ways that you can get return. And so when Parker talks about this iterative process, at least from what I see or get to manage, is to say, all right, how do I find that $1,000 right now for the first steps? Or how do I find the $5,000 or the $10,000 for the first steps? And it's clear. So the guardrail conversation to me is more about what is the expected ROI. And what I'm trying to let go, although it's very difficult because of our shareholders, stakeholders, and end of cash date, is the when.
When
something will happen.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is it's not universal that we can control when and just say, oh, by Q3, by Q4, by this date. So when it comes to guardrails, I think, I trust Parker to put when on it if he needs to say like by this date, if this isn't materially true, then we need to stop because there's other trade-offs to make for that same dollar.
Mhm.
That's what, director of growth does, is he makes sure that he's optimizing his spend and he has his own cutoffs. But for me, it's more about like trusting that the right behaviors and habits are happening over time. And as long as I see those continue, I think it can. I'm nervous that I saw myself as a CEO starting to dictate when to everybody. And
Well, yeah, you have to tell the board.
yeah, and you do, but I think I can manage up to the board as well, the right narratives that we are doing the right behaviors and habits. We expect to see this type of return for the activities and decisions we're making, and it will come. And so,
Do you think becoming better at managing up to the board allows you to be a better CEO that supports the rest of the C-suite and executive staff?
I would hope so. I don't.
Well, what do you think? He's been trying. Is he doing okay? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you take the concept of me managing up to Zach, I'm always letting him know what I need. It's very clear of like, hey, here's what's working, here's what's not, here's what I need. Having that process where I'm going up and saying those things, not coming back down. Same thing for the board. The board should know what's working, what's not, and what do we need from them. There's a reason we have this board we have now, because there's talent, there's experience. It's not just about capital, and so there's a lot that we want to tap in from that board.
Yeah, that actually might be. I've been thinking through how to adjust my templates for the State of the Union when doing the board meetings. I think like what's working, what's not.
that's smart.
Here's what we need.
That's smart.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Like that could be all one slide right there, and that could be a good
And
little template.
Every single executive gets to say, this is what's working, this is what's not, this is what I need.
Yeah, we have a similar.
It's similar to the high-low learn as. Here's what went well. Here's what went not so well. Here's how we're getting better, and here's what we. Yeah.
Mhm.
But the board should always know what we'd like from them, whether it's expertise or guidance or whatever it is.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to know what to ask for from a board of
Yeah.
directors, which is why spending more one-on-one time, hanging out, that kind of stuff is important.
Mhm.
We've asked you guys a lot of questions, but you guys haven't asked me a damn thing. So we're going to talk about what I want. We're going to talk about drinking on rooftops. You had an interesting hypothesis earlier today. I wonder if you could like maybe.
Do people know what Adam Anderson's all-time favorite hobby is before we like get to this observation out of nowhere? Like there's like this, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Family Feud. Like number 2 is like hanging out with kids and wife. number 3 is like smoking cigars. Number 4 is businessing. And like, what is number 1 on this list?
Sitting on very high places, drinking an adult beverage, and looking at the little people walk by down there who can't come up here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rooftop bars.
Rooftop drinking, rooftop bars.
Show me rooftop bars.
Oh, 98. Wow. There was only 3 answers.
All right. Patios, what do you call these? Balcony, rooftop, hot air balloon, rank.
Oh, so not the hot air balloon. They can't see you.
Oh,
You have to be seen.
Yeah, it's about status.
Yeah,
we are in relation to everyone else.
Yeah. And
Mommy, when will I be like that?
Yeah.
No, I like a good 4 or 5 floors above where they can see you lording over and looking down. Now, when we were in Bangkok, that was completely different. You're like 90 floors up, and that was just good to be getting away from the streets. But yeah, I like to find the highest place I can. I'm like a wild animal that just needs to like perch and look down while I sip my beverage. So yeah.
Well, we made a great point earlier that you're destined to go to space because space is the rooftop of the earth.
Yeah.
Go have a space whiskey in space. That
As
is
soon as
the
I can
ultimate rooftop.
get around these budgetary constraints.
Yeah.
I think that's a good punchline to probably end this on.
Excellent.
Any parting shots? Any interesting tidbits? You've been doing this startup thing for a while now inside of a venture-backed company. What's it like having to wear all these different hats and growing into a particular role?
Hard.
Word, and that's the show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, TSOB. Hey, and thanks for joining us for the TSOB podcast. Find us on LinkedIn and give us your hot take. The whole reason we're doing this is to get access to better conversations that help us up our game. And if you have something you want to share, we want to hear about it. Find us on the TSOB LinkedIn group and jump in with 2 feet. We can't wait to chat.